Today we have with us Dr. Niccole Miller from the University of Central Oklahoma, and she's going to talk to us about breathing life into your online courses. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Niccole.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hi, everyone. My name is Niccole Miller, like Jennifer said, and I'm the Director of Student Success and Retention in the College of Business at the University of Central Oklahoma. And I teach business communications for the College of Business. I have taught various courses over the last several years at Oklahoma State University and also the University of Central Oklahoma. So most recently, I've been teaching BCom since fall 2019. And if you've taught online for any amount of time, hopefully you feel like I do, that you get better every semester and that you continue to learn and grow and improve. So this, what I wanted to do today primarily was just to invite you into my business communications class and to show you some of the things that I'm doing to engage students. And like I said, kind of to breathe life into your online classes. And the reason why I chose that as a title is because, like I said, if you've taught online classes or you work with students and they talk about online classes, a lot of what is said oftentimes is, you know, this is an online class and I have to just teach myself, and, you know, the instructor just puts it on autopilot, or I don't get to really interact with my classmates and all these things. And then some of them enjoy that aspect of it too. But what I really try to think about every time that I do this class is, how can I bring more of myself, more of my personality into this class? How do I help create engagement without bogging them down with a bunch of just busy work assignments to check the box that says, okay, you know, they've done 8 discussion posts, now they're engaged, you know? And so I really try to think, okay, if this were in a face-to-face environment, what elements could I potentially bring into this course that would enable it to start to feel a little bit more like a face-to-face course in an online setting? And so I just want to go through six kind of areas that I've been playing around with over the last little bit here, and just kind of show you what I'm doing, and also open it up to respond to any questions that you may have about that. I'm more than happy for you to ask questions or ask how I came about doing that, or how it actually realistically works. And so really today's just going to be more of a show and tell rather than a PowerPoint with a bunch of slides. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Okay. So this is my business communications class, and what I really want to first start by talking about is the importance of the course homepage. And so you know that the course homepage is home base for these students, and so what I want to make sure is that students don't have to keep click in 1,700 places to find what it is that they're looking for. So I asked myself, what is absolutely imperative to be on the course homepage? And so one of the things is me. They know who their instructor is. They know what my goals are for them. They know how to reach me. And so we use D2L as an LMS. And I'm sure that you can make other LMSs do things in the home pages as well. But this is the one that we use here at UCO. And so I first let them know who I am. I show them a picture of myself. I tell them how to best reach me. And then I want to make sure that the syllabus and schedule is right on the homepage. So at UCO, we have the Center for E-Learning and Connected Environments, and that is our online, I call it like our online support system. And Brad knows because he worked there for a long time and stuff too, but CC is what we call them, and they will give us rubrics for approving online courses. So no classes at the University of Central Oklahoma are delivered online unless they're approved through CC for online delivery. And so there's a certain rubric that courses have to check in order to be approved for online delivery, that being the way that they're set up, the content, the way that they look, so on and so forth, to make sure that they're accessible and they're prepared in a way where all the classes, at least that are online, should on some level look the same, so that a student doesn't get in one class and then they get in another class and they're like, yikes, like this doesn't make any sense. And so that's really kind of the heart behind that. And we do, I don't remember how many years go by, but we re-look at the class every few years to say, is this still meeting the standards and the requirements? Our faculty also have to go through training to deliver online course content as well. So not anybody can just deliver an online class. So that's kind of how it works here. So one of the parts of that rubric is that we have the course syllabus and the schedule, and it's built into HTML within the D2L page. But I want it straight on the front of this in a widget so that they can get straight to the syllabus, straight to the course schedule as quickly as they can. I use McGraw-Hill Connect in my course, so I use a Connect widget. We have a testing center here in the College of Business for online students to take tests, and I actually manage that as well. And so I put a link just straight on our site so that they can access it right away, because they have to have that because of our lockdown browsers in the testing center. Due dates. And then I create these for the College of Business. So like I said, I work in student success and retention. And so I kind of situate in a little bit of a different position to sort of know some of the needs of what students need from a resources perspective. And so one of the things that I did prior to the last semester was I developed course homepages for our online classes and our face-to-face classes that our business faculty can select as a template to then build their classes in. And so these are some of the things that I built into the template. We know it's really important for students to connect with their academic advisors, for their career consultants. It's important for retention. And so I want to make sure that they know that we've got that right in the college, and here's a direct link to get there. And then, you know, we have workshops. So all of these little things that you see right here, I developed those, and I made them in a program called Canva. And you can sign up for a free Canva account. You have pretty fair capabilities in a free account, but if you want a little bit more, you know, beefed up capabilities, you'll have to pay for the pro account. But you can kind of make some really neat little things in here. And then I thought, you know, students really need to have access to enrollment resources, because how many times are they looking for the drop dates or the enrollment dates, or you know, any kind of enrollment resources, or they don't know how to enroll in classes. Is there a tutorial? So I thought, okay, well, what do they need right there? And then the other big question is finances. How do they pay for school? Can they get straight to forms? So I wanted to try to bring all these things that they go to all these other websites and stuff straight on the course homepage as a resource hub from a student success perspective. And so widgets are pretty easy to create, and then I just kind of move them around on the page. And then of course we have our, you know, university student resources. And then since I teach online, we have ProctorU, a message from the dean, and then we use this really cool program called Ally. And I don't know, Thomas, you're shaking your head, you know about it. So if y'all don't know about Ally, I can tell you a little bit about it as someone that was in our pilot group here at UCO. So a really cool thing is we have the ability to click on this Ally score report, and it shows a course's accessibility. And so mine's at 95% right now, and there's some things that could use a little bit of work, like PDFs, for example, and stuff like that. It does really well for the most part. There's some areas where it doesn't give you enough guidance yet. So that's kind of where some of mine's coming in, is I've messed with it and messed with it and messed with it, and that's as good as it's going to get for right now until we have some better guidance. But this has been a really great tool and a great resource for our students, because what they can do is they can download the course content in various different types of formats. So like if you have a student that wants to listen to what's written, for example, then they can download the audio version of that file. So that's just kind of a random aside of something that we do here at UCO. All right, so that's kind of just the homepage in a nutshell of what I'm trying to do. Is that, yes, I'm an instructor. Yes, this is business communications, but we live within the context of the university, and we live within the context of student success. And so it's not just about what goes on in the classroom and the books and the teaching, it's all of the other things going on at one time. And so I thought, okay, how do I sort of bring all of that together in one place and be able to help students find access to resources? The next area that I want to talk about is the news items. And so I call them pre-prepped news items. So what I do before the start of every semester is I put my course on autopilot. Okay, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying here, because that is the biggest complaint about faculty that teach online classes, is it's just on autopilot and you're not doing any of the work. It's easier to teach online. Well, not in my case. It takes a whole heck of a lot of work to build your course shell, to build in these announcements, to build in these unique elements, to change the dates, to do all of this stuff. And the reason why I do that is because, one, I never want to forget to post. And two, I want to free myself up to spend more time with them. I want to free myself up so that I'm not sitting there spending my time on doing all these news posts every week, but instead I am dedicating more time to grading their papers, or to putting out live classes, which I'll talk about in a minute, to participating in their Flipgrid discussions. Again, I'll talk about in a minute. So the things that you can put on autopilot that you can do really well to free yourself up to be a more engaged online instructor, that's what I'm talking about here. And I talked to one of our faculty who has taught online for a long time, and she had encouraged me to start putting pictures on every post that I make. So basically, before the start of every semester, I line up everything that the student is going to need within news items. So this is already done. I already know what's coming, when it's coming. I set the dates and it puts it out there. So one of the things that I do is I always open my class early, because I teach block 2 classes. And so I like to get my stuff done, open it, let them see what they're getting themselves into, and then they can determine if they're going to be successful in a condensed class. 8 weeks during fall and spring, 4 weeks in the summer. Moves really quick. And so if they want to get started early, I don't have a problem with them doing that. So I open that for them to do it. So every week on Sunday night, because I make my due dates basically, and I'll show you my course schedule in a minute so you can see, but I try to make my due dates the same every single week, so they always know stuff is due Sunday night. One of the complaints that we hear from students, because I'm responsible for our advisement team, is that faculty have stuff due at all random times all over the place, and it's hard for them to keep up with it. So pick a consistent time that it's due is something that I would say, if you're not doing that already, that can be extremely helpful for students. And so mine is midnight Sunday. Pretty much all of my stuff is due at that time. But I have some other stuff that I tweak a little bit, but it's always the same. For example, I used to require that they did a video post and respond to 2 classmates within the same day. But what I found was that the early adopters would get in there and they'd all have great conversation. And then you'd get these late guys that would then do their posts, and nobody would want to comment on their stuff because everybody already checked the box and completed the assignment and they didn't go back in. So what I do now is I have the original post due Sunday night, and then the classmate post responses due Monday. So that way it gives everybody a chance to try to interact and dialogue with each other. And then it gives me time to kind of settle and let it settle. And then I can look and see, okay, this buddy right here hasn't had anybody respond to him. Let's engage in a conversation with that one, unless I'm doing it for all of them. It just kind of depends on what time's available in the week. So each week, like I said, what I'll do is I'll give them a little hello. This is where we're at. This is where we're going. Here's what's due. I always have this line right here about the ally tools and resources. We will take feedback from them so we can change it. And I always, always, always put my email contact information. It's important that you let them know that you're available to them anytime. And I'm not saying anytime as in like they email you at 5 a.m., you're there at 5 a.m. Just that you're present. It's not that you're just relying on them to find your syllabus, or that you're relying on them to find that widget. When I think about this, I think about accessibility. If there's a contact and I'm writing an email, it's in my signature line, or I say, feel free to contact me here. So I want to make sure that I always tie them back to where I'm at if they need to reach me. And so I will do that in just about every post. We have workshops. Students can do them for extra credit as a part of the class. So I try to put news items posted on, those things that are coming up. So like I said, you can kind of just make a lot of this stuff go on autopilot and it'll release at the same time every week. So then they begin to understand the consistency of that as well. Whenever I have stuff kind of, because like I said, I've taught this class for a while. So obviously I'm not 100% sure when I'm going to post grades just yet. I know when the due date is, but I may be on top of it and be able to post them earlier. So what I do is I just make this an arbitrary date in the future. And then I just go in and I edit it and I change the date when I'm ready to release it, for example. Or like last night, for example, I posted this that I'm buried under the grading, and I'm coming. I will be there in a minute. You're probably wondering where I'm at. So another thing, they don't understand where you're at. So then they start driving you nuts with a whole bunch of emails. So just communicate with them. Just tell them. And I'm an adjunct. So that means that I don't just teach full time. That's not my only job. It's not the only thing that I do, but I'm present. And so I've given them a heads up. I try to be funny. I try to, bring my personality into it and let them know, like, here's when you can expect this, and here's when you can expect that, and here's the priority of how that's coming. And they literally don't email and ask me the questions because they're good. Like, they'll email if they need something, but I mean, it helps them understand where you're at so that they're not sitting there wondering. Again, from an advisement perspective, if I could encourage you as an online instructor, is you must be aware of when your university's drop deadlines are, because that's extremely imperative in your ability to post grades in a timely fashion by a certain date, so that students have all of the information that they can up front to determine, am I doing well in this class enough to keep going, or do I need to drop this by this date? So I'll just briefly, I want to kind of go to my syllabus real quick and show y'all something that I do is at the very end, I'll give them reminders of things. So I'll look at the university's deadlines and all of that stuff. So I'll look up their drop dates and I'll tell them when their dates are to get their money back, to get a W, if and when there's holidays. This semester we didn't have any. When's the midterm? When's the final? When are grades coming? And so I have that on my syllabus. That was something we learned when we were teaching the Success Central, freshman level classes. And I carried this over in all of my classes because they always are asking for that information. And so why not just put it in your syllabus? So we have it a lot of times to where faculty don't grade stuff on time, and then students are trying to make decisions about what their grade is and they have no idea. So they're either dropping classes unnecessarily, or they're not dropping classes that maybe they should, or reaching out or knowing what to do. And so I try to just keep on top of when those deadlines are. And that also helps me when I'm thinking about how I'm going to organize my class and what's due by what time. How many points would be appropriate at that point to say, like, okay, this is about where we're at until you need to drop. This should give you a pretty good indication of how well it's going. But if you don't have any exams due and you don't have any other measures built in to give them that feedback, then they don't know. So that's just some of the stuff that I do to kind of, I don't know, breathe life into it, I guess you can say. All right. I'm going to pause for just a minute. Are there any questions? Okay. All right. The next thing I want to just kind of show you is how I do my course schedule. So I make these course schedules in PowerPoint, and they tend to kind of like the way that it looks and it's laid out. And like I said, all my stuff is primarily due Sundays. So I let them know when there's some definite extra credit opportunities of workshops, for example. All my due dates are due on Sundays, with the exception of the 2 classmate posts. And then I try to give them some heads ups on things, that they need to be doing and working on in the meantime. My direct supervisor, who's taught online for a really long time, told me something as a new online instructor, and she was like, don't make due dates the first week that your class is open. I'm like, nah, it'll be fine. Like, it'll be totally fine. So I had it due on, the Sunday night. And then she was like, promise you don't want to do that because you're going to have a whole bunch of students that like add the class late. And then, you're going to be spending all this time opening up your course dates and stuff in McGraw-Hill and all that. And I'm like, it'll be fine. Well, guess what? She was right. So one of the things that I do is I do not make anything due until the second Sunday that class is. And like I said, business communications class, every class runs differently, but we have 16 chapters and they have chapter stuff due every weekend, basically, because we move through quickly. And so I don't have it due to the next week. So that way I never have to open anything because it's already open. And I don't have to kind of mess with that in case that they're just adding the classes. And they can get started on it early if they want to. And that's another thing that I'll write in my syllabus is that this class is designed so that you're always a week ahead if you want to be. So that way they're always kind of like just working. What else about this? So like I said, you just kind of want to be really clear about what's coming and when, and I think that this for them tends to be a really nice visual of that. And I've done this in lots of different ways, but for this class, this method works really well. I started to think about this class and all of these assignments that I give students and all the grading that I'm doing. And I'm like, okay, how do I make the grading easier on myself? Because it takes a really long time to grade written assignments, especially when you have like 30 to 35 kids plus in your class. Like that's a lot in an 8-week time frame. And so I was like, okay, what other resources could I give them to help them get a better grade on the assignment? And I know that seems kind of like well, duh, like, why wouldn't you do that? But I really try to like dig a little bit deeper into not just the assignment, but what other elements could go with this particular course. So videos, I'm going to open my content section for a minute. They love these videos. So I have an orientation module where I always will have my welcome video for the students, just kind of fairly short. I mean, if you can get your videos to like 3 minutes, that would be the goal. But intro video where you're kind of hitting all the high points, not bad to do a little bit longer. But in all of my various sections here, I have a video on rubrics, how to understand the rubrics or where they're located or what even a rubric is. And then I have for every one of my weeks, basically they have the objectives, everything that's due for that week, and I organized mine by weeks. And they have an introduction video from me for every week. And so that enables me to give a little bit of sort of teaching for them, let them see me, let them see that I'm a human. I'm here. I'm not like artificial intelligence. I'm not the University of McGraw-Hill Connect. Like I am Dr. Niccole Miller, and I'm here for your class. Now, I know that sometimes this stresses people out because making videos is awkward. It totally is. And we've been in a COVID world for over a year now, and I think we've probably gotten better at a lot of that because we have to. But I just found that people like you when you're just real and you're just yourself. And even if that means you're your awkward self, and it's totally fine. And they like to see that you're a human too. And so not everybody may like this, but when I do video discussion posts, I don't necessarily like dress up like this person that is, the professor. Like I'm sometimes have my hair up and I have a sweatshirt on too, and I'm just getting in there with them, and I'm conversing with them, and I'm having a dialogue, and I'm having a conversation, and I don't want to distance myself from them as like, I'm the professor and I've dressed this way so that we can't have an honest conversation. I want to just sort of be on their level and be with them, but also be able to model the appropriate way to have those conversations. And I find that they find me more approachable that way. They don't feel as nervous to ask me questions. And so that's just been sort of something that I've had to keep working through all the time. And the thing is with these videos, if you can film them in a general enough sense, like they're specific enough to what you need to do, but maybe you don't include due dates, for example, or a specific date or something that's going to change in the future, you can just say, you can refer to the due dates for the assignment in the syllabus. Then you can reuse a lot of these videos in multiple semesters before they start to get a little bit stale and it's time to reuse them or redo them. And so I found that saves me a lot of time because I can reuse a lot of these videos, but then I start thinking, okay, what other videos can I do or what other resources can I add? Because I've already freed myself up from having to do all those again. I've done that. Those are good. Now, what more can I do? And that's kind of the approach that I take with the class and stuff. So in the assignments module, like I was mentioning, I will go through each of, what they're going to be doing. So they have a little video from me on what the assignment is, and they've got the document here as well. They have for the business memo, for example, it's a huge assignment in the class. They've got the assignment. They've got my video here that talks about it and how I'm grading it and what I'm looking for. And then I give them an example of an A paper and a D paper. And I show them kind of why that is the case. And I talk about it. So one of the things I started to add on to this is because I provided the A paper and I provided the D paper, but sometimes they didn't really understand fully why it was an A and why it was a D. I mean, when you look at them side by side, it's fairly obvious. However, to actually speak to the specificity of why this was good or what it was that they did that just really popped for me, or what they didn't do that like they really need to go work with someone in the writing center, for example, and they're losing a lot of points because of the spelling and grammar. So I thought, okay, what if I offer a live class? Like I can't make them come because they're supposed to be able to access the class asynchronously. And so what if I did a live class to where I said, on this date and time, and I did 8 to 9 p.m. this last semester or this semester currently, I'm going to go through the entire business memo assignment from start to finish. I'm going to go through everything that you would need for this assignment to get an A on it, to do a good job. And I'm going to make myself available if you have any questions. And so what I do is I pick a time, like I said, and I announce it. And then I have students come and they'll ask me questions. I record the whole thing and then I make it available for everyone. So that way, nobody ever misses out. They just miss out on the ability to ask a question right then and there and be live. But of course, they can always reach out to me after. Students have really appreciated this. It's been helpful to them to then even come back later. It's maybe an hour that they're looking at the assignment, but that way they're seeing exactly what they need to do and where they need to go. And I found that the assignment has become a lot easier to grade because they're starting to resource themselves. And for the ones that don't do well on the assignment, I can tell it's because they didn't use the resources. And so I have absolutely no problem writing them some feedback to say, hey, there's a lot of great resources that I've provided. Have you used them? I would highly recommend that you use them for the next assignment so you don't lose unnecessary points, for example. So that's just a little something live class wise. So I mentioned a little bit earlier that I do video discussion posts, and this was a pain point. It is a pain point for students every semester. I don't know if COVID's kind of made it better or not. I'm not sure, but what I have found, so let me rewind for a minute. I was taking a grad level class as a part of my doctorate program a couple of years ago. And that is when I learned about Flipgrid. And so they said, we're going to use Flipgrid. And I'm like, we're going to use Flip. Like, no, thank you. Like, that is awkward. I don't want to do it. I'm afraid someone's going to post my video. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like I can be myself and everybody's watching this. And so I was really kind of like, not for it. And then as the semester evolved and I just, trusted the process, I was like, this is actually really cool. I had the ability to see other people that were in my class And, not every professor allows this to happen. And I'm just waiting for when one of my students uses it, because I don't know why nobody has done it yet. But you have the ability to add these little random like emojis and sunglasses and like just kind of funny stuff to your videos. And so when I was taking the class, people in the class, it became fun because you were doing your discussion, but it became interesting to see what kind of creative components people added to their videos and stuff. And it enabled the class to just be a little bit more fun and lighthearted, but still the content was relevant and, engaging for all of us and stuff like that too. So I said, I'm just kind of bored with written discussions, because a lot of what I was seeing was, it just feels like a check the box and move on kind of a thing for so many students, and maybe even for the professor. And it just gets kind of tough to read this one and that one and open that one, that one, that. I mean, just kind of like it's just kind of a mess sometimes. And then what I was finding was that students, they had no problem saying something to someone else when it was in writing, but it's kind of like, hey, we're not really being professional there. We're not, because they could hide behind the writing, because their picture or their video or themselves, they were not behind it. So they could just sort of be this anonymous poster, even though it had their name on it, but nobody really knew who they were. And so I thought, with the fact that online classes struggle to have engagement in that way, or to really be able to measure what engagement is, I think Flipgrid is an option for us to try it. And so before every semester, I talk to them about Flipgrid, and I tell them those same stories. Hey, I did not like this idea either. So like, I feel for you. I get that this may feel highly uncomfortable, but here's why we want to do it. And so I tell them, for a business communications course, and especially the fact that we're in such a digital world, and digital is part of the course objectives in this class, they have to learn how to talk and interact professionally in an online setting. And so the first semester, I didn't respond to, because I always have them do an intro video of who they are and answer some questions. I'll show you some of that in just a minute. But the first semester, I didn't respond to everyone's video. And so I found that it was like, most of the class participated in the discussions, but not as many. And I was kind of just picking and choosing groupings of different ones to do, but I always wrote them. And so I'm like, you know what, I can do better than that. Like, if I'm asking them to post, then I'm posting too. And so I know that, if you've got a large load or lots of other things going on, you may not be able to respond to every student's post every time, but I do try to make an effort to do that. And so the last several semesters, I have responded to every post that every student made, every original post. And then I watch all of them, and sometimes can even sort of summarize back to all of them in their thread what they're talking about. And that's enabled them to see that I'm someone that cares about them. I'm hearing what they're saying. I'm trying to give them valuable feedback in what they're talking about. And in turn, that has been, in my opinion, motivational to them to continue participating. I kid you not, I did nothing this one, it was last semester. I did absolutely, no, 2 semesters ago. Yes, last semester. I did absolutely nothing other than say, do the Flipgrid posts. I had 100% class participation in the assignment. 100%. That's not normal for most people, video discussions. And so I ended up giving them all extra credit, because I'm like, that's awesome. And so now what I do is, instead of using it as like a test to see how many want to participate, is I tell them up front, hey, if the whole class participates in at least a post, I'm giving the whole class extra credit. And then I basically divvy out the extra credit of like how I give it. Like if they posted all 3, they get the full amount, or just a part, so I divvy it up in parts. They don't know what I divvy it up as until the end, but I just tell them up front, because I find that if, they need extra credit, someone in the class is going to put out a class email and be like, hey man, we all need to participate. Like, this is important. And so what that also does is it gives the ability for leaders to step up and encourage other people in the class to come on, you know what I mean? And the power of peer-to-peer communication is powerful. And so that could be really helpful in the class as well, is instead of you being the bad guy, you let them kind of do it behind the scenes. So some of the best piece of advice is I tell them is to open their mind and embrace it. Don't worry about what other people think, give their best effort. And then, I give them some posting rules. They have to be respectful. It doesn't mean they have to agree with everyone. They're not allowed to use foul language, and they must be dressed. Those are really the only kind of 3 rules that I have for the discussions, and it goes really well. And so it's kind of fun because, you can build, and this is free to use, Flipgrid. And so what I do is I've got, you have the ability to use these little emojis and stuff if you really want to. And then I try to find a little funny GIF or whatever that goes with it. And then you basically have all these people that are posting and all the comments that are posted off of their posts. And you get to see the responses, the views, the comments, the hours of engagement. Like, that's awesome. The fact that they're talking to each other is important. And I think one of the greatest things when it comes to online classes and students doing this is this notion of me too. And like, we're in this together, and there's other people that are actually living and breathing and experiencing the same thing together, and they get to see each other. I had a couple of students in the class that were Asian, and they connected just purely by the fact that they had something in common, and were saying, hey, let's get together and have coffee sometime. Like, I love that. I love that they have the ability to make friends in the class, or find people that are like them, find people that are in their same major, or some of the ones that have maybe been out in the job world a little bit, and they watch the younger ones who really haven't had a chance yet, and they give them some of their thoughts on life and stuff. Like, it's powerful, and I find that they are really enjoying it, even though sometimes they're a little bit apprehensive at first. Let's see, videos. Okay, so the last kind of main thing that I want to talk about is a mid-semester review, is what I'll call it. I don't know if anybody else experiences this, or if this is a UCO thing or not, or what have you, but we really struggle with online classes to get feedback with the official course survey that the university does through whatever your version of institutional research is. The response rate for online classes is abysmal. I think I normally get 1 to 3, maybe a semester. If you teach fully online, or if you're someone that is working through TNP, that's tough, right? Because you don't have anything to put in your portfolio towards that. And so I'm someone that, like, I want feedback, even if it's bad feedback. Like, I still want it because I can do something with it, after I'm done crying or whatever initially. No, I'm just kidding. But you want feedback. I mean, I hope you do. I hope we all have that growth mindset. And so what I started doing is I thought, well, this is a business communications class, so what a perfect assignment for it. I'm going to create a professor feedback assignment, because it's important for students to learn how to give and receive feedback in a professional manner. You can say you don't like something, but it's not okay to be a jerk about it. How can you present that to someone in a way that is appropriate? And so I put together an assignment, like I said, and it's called a professor feedback assignment. And so what I tell them, and they have to disclose who they are in the assignment. 3 to 5 minutes. So when I administer this, is they take their midterm, and the week that their midterm is due, their professor interview or professor feedback assignment is also due. And I administer it through Qualtrics, because that's what our university uses. And so that way it's mid-semester. They've had a lot of stuff before. They get to tell me all their feelings and thoughts towards everything. And it gives me the ability to see, am I doing a good job as an instructor? Because I can definitely change course. Or maybe certain students are having issues and not others, so I need to reach out to them. And so I, give them that little tidbit. And so this is what I ask them. I have them provide their information. I ask them whether they've read through the syllabus or not. If they say no, I ask them why. What's causing you issues here? Have you navigated through the tabs, the pages in the course shell? Why not? At this point, do you feel like you have a good understanding? Okay, what would help you have a better understanding? Do you feel you have all the resources you need? What else can I help you with? What's going well? Where are you struggling? How can I better assist you? And then I ask them about Ally. I don't need them or whatever. So that way I get some more feedback about Ally, and I can feed that to CC in the event that students don't ever fill out the feedback form. I can at least give them some information about how that's going, and then anything else they want to provide feedback on. So then what I do is I read through all of that, and I go in to grade their assignments. And so when I go to, like I said, grade this assignment, just a second, I'm gonna go back here. Is like I said, I read what the students write within the assignment, but then I go right directly to each of them, not just, thanks for filling this out, I really appreciate it. But hey, I noticed that you said that. I'm glad that's going really well for you. Have you thought about this too? Feel free to reach out to me if you have any issues or what have you. I had a student that told me with this business communications class, he was like, I literally I don't know how to use the course shell. Like, I don't know how to find anything. Like, I feel like it's so confusing. I'm like, well, it's weird. I don't feel like it's confusing, but let's talk about that. And so I'm like, maybe I can learn something. How can I help? And so I reached out and I said, hey, ball's in your court. Reach out. I want to talk. Let's talk about this. Let's set up a time to Zoom. Let's visit. Let's talk about this. Let's get you squared away. Let's figure out what's going on there. I have students that are like, why do you make us do SmartBook activities in McGraw-Hill Connect for so long? Like 2 hours is way too long to work on something. And so I write them back and I say, hey, listen, this is a 3-hour course and you'd be sitting in class. And so you have to do the math in your head as far as like seat time equates for, the fact that you have to learn the content material and stuff like that. And so I'm able to at least share and explain the why behind the what, and not just, well, because I said so, because that's the way that it's always done. They pay a lot of money and they spend a lot of time, and we have a large student population that are, one, non-traditional, and two, they work like a lot, or they have families. And so they want to know that their time is being well spent. So that gives me the opportunity to share a little bit more about why things are the way they are. And I may be the only person to ever tell them that, but that's okay, because that's going to be the same case in other classes. And I'm glad I get to tell them that. So every semester, I get really good feedback from students about how things are going. And so I feel good about myself, yes, but I also get those other little things that's like, it would have been really cool to be able to do this. And so I'm like, okay, maybe next semester I can take off a little bit more of that SmartBook activity. And instead, maybe we can add this article and do XYZ, or I can add an extra live class about that chapter. But you have to be able to assess it and make sure that people are coming, because that's the tricky part of online. Last thing that I'll say, and then I'm going to just kind of just stop and open it up for questions, is if you have the ability, you can set up these, if I can find it real quick, just a second, what's called intelligent agents. And so I have an intelligent agent set up called Missing You in BCom. And what I do is I set it up for who it needs to go to. And I have the ability to kind of do a few different things with it. So one, if the user hasn't logged in 3 days, they will get this message. And two, if they haven't accessed this actual course, so like they could have logged into so this is logging into D2L, and this is logging into my specific course. So then what I do is I take action every time it's not satisfied. It pipes in the HTML. I copy myself on it. So that way, after they send this to them, then I can also see how many times it's being sent to that student. And then I can reach out and do damage control before they wreck themselves. And so what it does is it pipes in this information. Hey, I'm missing you. I noticed your last login date was, and it fills it in. And, the last time you accessed the course was, and it fills it in. Hey, it's really important that you're accessing this because this moves fast and I don't want you to be left behind. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. And so I have students respond to this often. Hey, I'm really sorry. It's been really busy at work. Cool. Anything I can do to help? Or I've seen a student that's never logged into my course. I've been reaching out, can't get a hold of them. Hey, you need to drop this course. You need to drop this course. Can't get a hold of them. So the next step this weekend is I'm going to call them and tell them, hey, you know, you want to drop this course, or what do you want to do? Because you haven't done anything and you're going to get an F. It's not going to work. I had one reach out yesterday, 2 days ago. I'm so sorry, Dr. Miller, I don't have the money for the textbook yet. Like, what? We're halfway through the semester. You don't have the textbook? Well, how come you haven't turned your other assignments? Well, I thought that I had to have the textbook for that. Nope, you didn't. So let's talk about that. Let's see if I can help you. And you don't know that if you're not asking the questions. And so, yes, does this take more time? Yes. But for me, I think the investment is worth it, because I feel like, you know, if we can help them, like, why not? Anyway, so I hope you've found some things that could be helpful to you. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody. I will provide this to you all eventually as well. Just gives just kind of a quick little brief overview of what we talked about today, aside from the intelligence agents, which I can probably add to it before I send it out. But I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. Okay, so, oh, thank you, Thomas and Tammy. Thank you all. How long are the weekly introduction videos? Okay, so when I set these up, you have the ability to get in here and, you know, I tell them what I want them to do. And then there's certain like rules that you can set up. So I don't let them share videos with just anybody because I think that's kind of creepy. And then closed captions. So you get to pick the recording time here. So it just kind of depends. And I always ask myself, like, what's an appropriate amount of recording time to answer that question. So for some of mine, the intro, I want them to do that a little bit more succinctly, because especially I'm going to be responding to every single one of them, which means I have to watch all of them. So this one right here, emotional intelligence, I have them go take a quiz and then talk about their results and stuff like that. So for this one, I think I did 2 or 3. Yeah, I did 3 minutes on this one, because it's worth double the amount of points as the intro. And does it integrate into a Blackboard discussion board assignment? I haven't messed with the integration yet. But there is an integration with Microsoft Teams now. But I started to kind of play with it, and then it was kind of one of those, like, I think this is just going to be more things in more places than it needs to be, but I haven't had time to look at that yet. So what I do is I just put their grades in as I watch them. And so when I'm grading, I'll say, you know, this assignment was worth such and such points. So like, this is like 20 points. So for example, their original post is 10, and then 5 points when they respond to one classmate, 5 points when they respond to another classmate. And so I just kind of leave the window open, and I update the notes as they go through to say, like, this was good, or hey, you didn't introduce yourself before you talked to that friend. So make sure you do that next time so you don't lose points. And so I tell them specifically what they're doing.
Niccole, thank you very much for this information. And I think you do an amazing job in your course. And I think that your students probably notice the aesthetic attention that you pay in your course, because, you know, it's very polished looking. And I like that. It is that matter sometimes of giving them the bang for their buck and letting them feel that in certain ways. And I will say too, you know, I definitely felt the same way when I started teaching online. The way that you talk about, you know, you front load everything, you put all these announcements in, and it can make you seem, you know, a little bit canned, but it does leave you more time to provide feedback. And I will say that that's the one comment that I keep getting semester after semester from students of where they find value is like, you actually read what I wrote, you acknowledged what I wrote, and you dug into it like this is a conversation. And that's exactly how online courses are at their best. It's a conversation and a feedback, you know, that loop between you and your students and the students from one another, you know. So I just think that you really do a good job of embodying that in your course.
Thank you, Brad. Let me say one real quick thing when it comes to grading. I always ask myself what form of grading is going to be the easiest for the student to receive on that particular assignment. So a lot of times I'm giving written grading, but when it comes to, they do a professional interview project and they do presentations. And so when I can, if I have the ability, I will give verbal feedback and I'll tape myself and then I will upload it so that they get to see, because, you know, sometimes written can come across not as you intend it to all the time. And so that way they have the ability to see, like, this was really good. Like, I really love that. Okay, this one, I wish you would have done that a little bit more, you know, and that comes off a lot better than like, wish you would have done that a little bit more, you know. So I try to ask myself, you know, at what approach to grading makes the most sense for this assignment and getting my message across. So for specific written assignments, like they need to see exactly where things go. So I ask them to turn things in Word documents, and then I do track changes and I teach them how to look at track changes, how to accept all of them and see, this is what yours look like, this is what it should have looked like. This semester, I worked with the annotation in D2L, and I'm not sure if I like it or not, or if it's taking me more time or less time. So that's something that I was kind of playing with to see. So anyway, you've got some options there too.
Brad, I can add something here. Thank you, Dr. Miller, for a great presentation. And the segment you mentioned about faculty feedback evaluation that you do in your course, I agree with you that the university evaluation really doesn't meet what your courses is about. And I think, and then also, I think you did a good job when you went through the question that you asked a student. And we don't realize that how much useful a student are to give us feedback, constructive feedback, to help us to build the course better. I actually use it not, I think you did a better job than I did, because you used it at the time that you can communicate with a student better. I use it at the end of the semester because I didn't want a student think has anything to do with their grade if they are negative about me or the course. And then I said, nothing has to do with them. They can say anything about the course, give me feedback, because I want to polish the course, make it better for the future student, for your colleague. Therefore, they were honest. They told me, for example, discussion question wasn't clear, or this wasn't clear, or my second test, the question. I mean, they were honest and gave me their opinion, and then I included to improve the course for the future. And then I gave them, I think, like a 7 point or something that included as a bonus point for doing that. And I think that's a great feedback. And I think you did a better job than me, because you offered it at the time that you also were able to give constructive feedback to the student. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. And one of the things I tell them, because I dealt with that too, what you're talking about is them feeling like they were going to be penalized for it. But I always tell them part of your learning in this course is your ability to give and receive feedback, but me too. And, you know, you're not going to be penalized for anything you write in this survey, but it is important that you respond and conduct yourself in a professional way. Again, I'm not going to hold that against them. I'm going to use it as a teaching moment, but it also gives me the ability, like I have a female student in my class that's a single mom, and she's just struggling. And I could tell in everything that she wrote, she was just beating herself up. And so I said, stop it. Moms need to stick together. You've got this, like you can do it. And so it gives me the ability to bring myself and what I believe to be a calling into this work. And so I think it enables you to see like the heaviness of the things that they're struggling through, because there's so many of them that just don't have some kind of a cheerleader or an encourager in their corner to just say, you got this, like you can do it. And that goes a heck of a long way if you let yourself help in that way.